So we continue with the small intestine parts, and we are now on the three juices which are going to be entering into the small intestine. So the two juices we are talking about, the bile and the pancreatic juice. So let's go one by one with what are the functions of these two juices for the digestion. Bile, this is a yellowish green and watery fluid produced in the liver, which is transported through the hepatic duct. The hepatic duct is joined by the cystic duct to form the common bile duct. So basically there is a duct which is hepatic. Anything which is connected to the liver is always called as hepatic. So whenever you listen to, whenever you have got any terminology which is hepatic something, you can understand it to be connected to liver. Like if it is connected to the kidney, it is called as renal. So renal, anything which is renal is kidney. Anything which is connected to the liver will be hepatic. So here there is a hepatic duct, and then is one cystic duct which go combine together to form a common duct for the bile juice to enter into the alimentary canal. The bile may flow directly into the duodenum, or as it generally happens, gets temporarily stored in the gallbladder. So just if you see a liver, the liver is something like this. It is a thing like this, and just below the liver is a small kind of a gland which is called as this is the liver, and this is called as the gallbladder. Okay, the gallbladder is the one which is going to store the bile juice for the body. So it is not going to happen that the bile juice here generate कर रहा है और सीधा सीधा जा रहा है. It is stored in the gallbladder for a while, and then it will be so. Very rarely it will happen that the liver is continually flowing, leaving the bile juice and without storing it in the gallbladder. So normally it will be that it will be stored in the gallbladder. The color of the bile is due to the certain pigment called as biliverdin or bilirubin. So biliverdin or bilirubin is the one which causes the color of the bile to be yellowish green. Produced by the breakdown of the dead and the worn out red blood cells. So yeah, we already know that the worn out blood cells are going to be done in the spleen and in the liver. So these red blood cells which are worn out, and they are going to produce bilirubin, which is going to give the color yellowish green to the bile juice. Bile contains a lot of sodium bicarbonate, which neutralizes the acid content of the food received from the stomach and makes it alkaline to enable the pancreatic and the intestinal enzyme to act. So first thing what the bile does is that bile is slightly alkaline in nature. We know that acid plus base gives you salt plus water. So the acidic part, the gastric juice has already made the chyme acidic. Okay, this acidic part will not be able to, or basically the enzymes produced by the pancreas will not be able to act on these particular chyme, because the acid present in the chyme will kill or destroy the enzymes of the pancreas. That's why the bile juice is firstly going to be alkaline, so that it neutralizes the chyme and makes it much more either neutral or alkaline in nature, so that the pancreatic juice can act on them. So bile salts reduce the surface tension of the fats and break them into tiny droplets, emulsification, for providing greater surface area for the action of enzyme. Overall, the role of the bile is as follows. So first is acidic chyme with the help of bile juice, which is nothing but having a good amount of sodium carbonate, okay, bicarbonate, is going to make it alkaline chyme. And then the fat is going to work on, the bile is going to work on the fat. So the thing what we see is the fat is going to be worked upon by the bile to make it emulsified. Okay, it's going to get emulsified to emulsified. So the fat is going to be broken down or emulsified with the help of the bile. Then comes the pancreatic juice. This is produced in the whitish gland pancreas located behind the stomach. The pancreatic duct opens in the duodenum as an aperture common to that of the bile duct. The pancreatic juice contains three kinds of enzymes. So pancreas, which is a white colored part, a leaf-like structure just below the stomach, and that particular part is going to be producing three kinds of enzymes. The first one is amylopsin, that is pancreatic amylase. So जैसे salivary amylase है जो starch के ऊपर काम करता था, वैसे ये pancreatic amylase है. Digest leftover starch into maltose. So whatever starch which is not got digested in the mouth by the saliva is going to be acted upon by the salivary amylase, which is going to be will be acted by the pancreatic amylase produced by the pancreatic juice. That is amylopsin. The next is trypsin. Acts on the remaining proteins and polypeptides to produce smaller peptides and amino acids. Trypsin is first secreted as inactive trypsinogen, which is activated by trypsin by an enzyme enterogenesis called as enteropeptidase, secreted by the inner lining of the duodenum. So first of all, the next thing is the trypsin. Now trypsin is the one which is going to act on the, see, we studied that in the gastric juice is going to be acting on the proteins, to convert the proteins into peptides, okay, and that was done with the help of the pepsin. So here whatever is the protein which is there, that particular part is going to be converted, the proteins are going to be converted into smaller peptides or into amino acids using the trypsin. And the next one is stepsin. Acts on emulsified fat to split them into fatty acids and glycerols. So the role of pancreatic enzyme is, first is trypsinogen is going to, which is inactive, becomes active by enterogenesis. The proteins and the peptides are going to worked by the trypsin to convert into smaller peptides and amino acids. And the leftover starch are going to work by the amylopsin, that is the pancreatic amylase, to convert maltose. And the emulsified fats are going to be worked on by the trypsin to fatty acids and glycerols. So this is how the pancreatic juice is going to work on the body. This is a very, very important part. These equations which are given over here are very important. You need to learn them. Intestinal juices contain ellipsin, a mixture of peptides to convert remaining peptides into amino acids, maltase into digestion, maltose or into sugar, lactase into digest lactose into glucose and galactose, sucrase or invertase to split sucrose into glucose and fructose, and strases or lipase to digest fats into fatty acids and glycerols. All these changes are summarized as follows. So once the food, that is the chyme, enters into the small intestine, when it is acted after the duodenum and jejunum, when it enters into the ileum, it is now going to be acted upon by the intestinal juices. So the intestinal juices, they are going to do whatever is the leftover work for the extraction, or we can say absorption, required from the food. So इसलिए what it will see in that, first thing what it does is that the peptides, the ellipsin that is working on the peptides to convert it into amino acids. So amino acids can be absorbed by the blood. That's why the peptides are getting converted into amino acids. The maltose will get converted. So whatever is the maltose, which is the starch, has got converted into maltose. So that maltose is going to get converted into by maltase to glucose. The sucrose is going to get converted into glucose and fructose. Again, these are the glucose and fructose are one which can be digested easily or absorbed easily by the body, by the blood, absorbed by the blood. Lactose will be, milk sugar is going to get converted into galactose and glucose and galactose. And finally, see, emulsified fat is going to be worked on by the lipase to form fatty acid and glycerol. So that is what is happening inside the intestine, by the small intestine, by the intestinal juices. The absorption of food, the final product of the food, are mainly absorbed in the intestine itself. The amino acids and the simple sugars, fructose, galactose, glucose, are relatively small sized molecules which are absorbed through the thin epithelium of the villi and reach their blood capillaries to finally enter the blood circulation, first to reach the liver through the hepatic portal vein. The fatty acid and glycerol are absorbed into the lymph vessels or the lacteals, or to enter the hepatic lymphatic system to form a network all over the body to ultimately empty its content into the bloodstream. The food passes very slowly through the intestine, taking about 4 hours to enter the last part, which is the large intestine. So you can see that the food is going to enter here. So ये single epithelium जो है, that is allowing the glucose, fructose, sucrose, ये जितने भी small sugars जो है, all that can be easily be taken in by the arteries and the veins which are present inside over here, and that is going to be directly taken to the hepatic portal vein and from the to the liver. So from the intestine it is going to the liver, where it can be stored or it can be utilized as per the body requirement. The other part, that is the fatty acids and all, they are going to be taken in by the lacteal. So the lacteal which is there inside over here is going to absorb them and take it to the lymph vessels, and with the help of the lymph vessels they are going to take it to the heart and then get into the circulatory system of the blood. So that's how the thing is going to take place in the about the fats in by the lacteal, and the whole process is going to take around 4 hours. So the normal food, the intestine will take around 4 hours for the complete digestion to take place, and then it is going to be passed on to the last part of the alimentary canal, and that is the large intestine. The large intestine is about 1.5 meter long. It has 3 parts: cecum, colon and rectum. Okay, so cecum, colon and rectum are the 3 parts of the large intestine, which is about 1.5 meters long. The cecum is a small blind pouch situated at the junction of the small and the large intestine. From its blind end projects a narrow worm-shaped tube called vermiform appendix, which is it is no longer used in humans, because it is never used in humans, because they are the ones which are helpful for only those animals which can digest the cellulose of the plants. We cannot digest the roughage nor the cellulose. That's why we don't use the appendix. So for the humans it is a vestigial organ, means not required. So when inflamed is caused, appendicitis today is a functionless organ. So it is a functionless organ. The next is colon. Colon is much broader than the ileum and is little more than a meter long. It passes up the abdomen on the right on the right, that is ascending colon, crosses to the left just below the stomach, transverse colon, and down to the stomach left side, that is descending colon. So अगर ये यहाँ पे अगर ये intestine है, small intestine, so one part goes up, which is the ascending colon, then the transverse colon, and then there is a one down, which is the descending colon. So the colon is about 1 meter long, which is having 3 parts. So that's why it is this way, that it is going to be go like this over here, like this. So this is the small intestine here, and so this is the ascending colon, then the transverse colon, and the descending colon over here. The last part is the rectum. So over here the final part is the rectum, that is the way we give out our balls. So the rectum is the last part, about 15 centimeter long, which opens to the anus. The anus are circular muscles, that is sphincters, to keep it closed except when passing the bowels. Okay, so that is how it works. One sec. So the large intestine, so it's here that it is the 3 parts, cecum, colon and rectum. So we can see the functions wise. The large intestine secretes no enzymes. So the large intestine is like winding up the whole thing. Okay, it doesn't produce any enzyme because उसके लिए कुछ काम बचा ही नहीं है. जितना भी absorption वगैरह करना था वो small intestine में खत्म हो चुका है. So right now what is required is that the excess amount of water which is present with the food, because we have kept on adding so many enzymes, so and each and every enzyme has got 99% water in it, so automatically the amount of water which is making the whole food into watery part, that is the chyme, is going to be reabsorbed by the body in the large intestine. So the large intestine secretes no enzyme. It absorbs much water but very little digested food from the content, which mainly consists of undigested material. After much water is absorbed, the contents become semi-solid feces which pass into the rectum and are expelled at intervals. The expulsion of the undigested remains of the food from the alimentary canal is called defecation. The feces are normally now composed of nearly 75% water, 25% solid matter, which again consists of 30% dead bacteria, 10 to 20% fats, 2 to 3% protein, 30% roughage. The bad odor of the feces is due to the bacterial action in it. Note, the composition of the feces varies from person to person as well as according to the kind of food consumed. So that is quite common. So that was about the large intestine. So large intestine main purpose is to reabsorb all the water which had been put inside the food for the digestion purpose. So the water is being absorbed, and then whatever is remaining will be only the soft fecal matter which is defecated by the body through the anus. The next is assimilation of food. So assimilation is the conversion of the absorbed digested food into body material. Now, what we have seen up till now is that body has absorbed the material in the form of proteins को amino acid में convert करके उसने absorb किया, glucose, galactose, sucrose, fatty acids. तो ये सब अभी body उसका क्या करेगा? What is the body going to do with these things? The food digested and absorbed by the gut are transported in two ways, through the hepatic portal system and through lymphatic system. So we saw that it was going to be working on two ways. One was with the arteries and the veins से directly वो hepatic portal vein में जा रहा था, and second one was the lacteal से it is going into the lymphatic system. Simple sugars, amino acids, vitamins and minerals etc. are carried to the liver by the hepatic portal vein. The liver converts any excess glucose or other simple sugars into insoluble glycogen which can be temporarily stored. This process is known as glycogenesis. See, whatever is the excess amount of glucose or the different kind of sugars present in the body, the liver is going to receive them, and then first thing will be it will try to utilize, the body gets to utilize those glucose by means of respiration or any kind of body activity. In case the body doesn't require that glucose, it will convert it into a glycogen, which is an insoluble form, which can be used later on whenever the body is falling short of the glucose. So this process of converting the glucose into insoluble glycogen, which is called as glycogenesis. Glycogenolysis. Glycogenesis, right? I'm not sure. It is glycogenesis. When needed, the liver reconverts the glycogen into glucose. This process is known as glycogenolysis. So, glycogenesis, conversion of glucose to glycogen, and glycogen to glucose is glycogenolysis. And put it back into the blood circulation. Glucose is required in the body tissue as a source of energy in cellular respiration and also in synthesis of certain compounds. The amino acids circulate in the body and they serve as a building block of protein. The amino acids cannot be stored. Any excess amino acid are broken down in the liver by the process of deamination, in which the nitrogen containing amino group is removed and converted into urea for excretion, and the remaining part forms glucose which can be utilized. So whatever is the amino acid which is there, it is going to form into the building block. तो जहाँ जहाँ भी wear and tear of the body का है उसको convert करने, उसको repair करने के लिए this amino acid is going to be used. Excess of amino acid cannot be stored in the body, and because it cannot be stored in the body, then the liver is going to break it down and convert it into nitrogenous waste. The nitrogenous waste is nothing but urea, which is going to be excreted by the body in the form of urine. And of course, a part of it is broken down, the part of it is getting converted into glucose also, which is used by the body. The fatty acid and glycerol absorbed by the gut are transported mainly through the intestinal villi and lymphatic system. The thoracic duct of the lymphatic system empties into the large vein carrying blood to the heart. Some fats are used in the synthesis of certain compounds in the body cells. The excess quantity is deposited chiefly below the skin as subcutaneous fats or under certain visceral organs in small quantity. You can see all the way we have got the fats over here. The fats जो हमारे body में है, that is nothing but the excess of fatty acids and glycerols which are present in our body, which can be stored in our body. That's why they are going to be located underneath the skin as the fat cells. Okay. The next is what we are having is to understand the liver. So the liver is the largest gland of the body, weighing about 1.5 kg on an average. It is a reddish brown organ located in the upper right side of the abdomen, just below the diaphragm. Now they are given some functions of the liver. As such, they are not in the syllabus, so we just go through it in a simple manner. Control of blood sugar level. It regulates the blood sugar to retain excess glucose received as product of carbohydrate digestion from the intestine and storing it as glycogen and releasing it again when needed. So the same thing what we understood about the glycogenesis and glycogenolysis and glycolysis. So वो जो है the same thing is given over here as the function of the liver to maintain the glucose level in the body. Control of amino acid levels. Excess amino acids is broken down to remove the nitrogenous parts. Deamination producing urea and sugar. Urea is eliminated through the excretion and sugar is utilized in metabolic activities. Again the same thing. Synthesis of fetal red blood cells. It produces red blood cells in embryo. In adult, RBCs are produced by the bone marrow. Yeah, in the embryo stage, the RBCs are produced by the liver. So that is the stage in the embryo stage. Storage, it stores iron, copper and several vitamins A and D, etc. Detoxification, detoxifies certain substances including drugs and alcohol. Production of fibrinogen and prothrombin which are used in blood clotting. So blood clotting is done with the help of the platelets, and the platelets contain these production of these material like fibrinogen and prothrombin, which is going to be produced by the liver. Production of heparin and anticoagulant, again used for the blood and blood clotting. And production of heat by cellular metabolism. So the body heat is generated by the cellular metabolism that is done by the liver. And regulation of the blood volume by acting as a temporary store of excess water. So temporary storage of water, so अगर blood content कम हो गया तो it will give some water, it will take some water, so that is going to be done by the liver. So it maintains the water level in the blood. Excretion of toxic and metabolic poisons, metallic poisons. So we already seen that the urea excretion is also done by the liver. So apart from that, it also does the excretion of the toxic and the metallic poisons. And finally, destruction of dead red blood cells. So destruction of red blood cells is going to be done by the liver. So that is the function of the liver. You can see the liver is a very, very vital organ because you can see the number of functions of it, and that's why a failure of the liver or any part of damage to the liver is going to be very, very dangerous for the body. And that's why intaking a high amount of alcohol and all always causes the damage to the liver. So it's very important that you maintain a good health for the liver. And also it is seen that one very good thing about the liver is that liver is a regenerative kind of cells. So cells of the liver are regenerative. So if the liver is cut into half, then after few, let's say, months, the liver is regrowing into the whole shape again. So that's why the liver transplant में वही होता है कि किसी healthy person का liver cut करके जिसका liver खराब है उसको निकाल के वहाँ पे embed करते हैं. So both the people, the donor as well as the receiver, both are going to regrow its liver accordingly. So that's why the liver provides a dependable clue to the suspect case of poisoning through food, and thus it is an important organ in post-mortem examination. So yeah, that is whenever they want to post-mortem वगैरह करते हैं, police case वगैरह होता है, तो the liver का diagnosis is very important because it tells the person that whether he was poisoned or not. So this is the important part of the liver. Now we have got certain experiments. Now they are not so important. We can just go through them very quickly because the experiments of these chapter are normally not asked. So, but you can just go through it very quickly. Certain experiments on digestion. The action of saliva on starch. Prepare a suspension of some starch by heating 1 gram of it in 100 ml of water in a beaker. So starch liya, and we are taking a suspension or solution of in 100 ml of water. Put some of the suspension in 2 test tubes. Test a sample from one of the test tube for starch by iodine solution, and another sample by another test tube by sugar. Take a little starch suspension in a third test tube and add to it an equal volume of saliva, which may collect either by chewing some gum. So hold this test tube in your hand for 15 minutes to keep it warm. So you are going to keep it warm like this. So you are taking 3 test tubes. One has got the 3 starches there in each of them. एक के अंदर शुगर टेस्ट करना है, शुगर के लिए टेस्ट करना है, एक के अंदर आयोडीन के लिए स्टार्च के लिए टेस्ट करना है, और तीसरे में स्टार्च टेस्ट करने के पहले वी आर एडिंग सम अमाउंट ऑफ सलाइवा इनटू इट. सो वी आर एडिंग सम सलाइवा इनटू द स्टार्च in this particular thing, and you're holding it for 15 minutes because you need to keep it warm. Hold the test tube in your hand for 15 minutes to keep it warm, or you can put the test tube in a beaker containing water at around 38 degrees Celsius. Next, perform sugar and starch test on the samples taken from it. It will no longer have a positive starch test but will show presence of sugar. So you can see that the one which has got the saliva in it, that particular thing has automatically changed the starch into sugar because the saliva is going to act on the starch to convert it into sugar. That's why you will no longer have the starch test done. When you do the starch test in that particular part, it will not give any starch in it. It will show that there is only sugar in it. The next is the action of pepsin on egg white. I'll do one thing, I'll just continue this in the next video.